Hello, everyone. Welcome to Interperspectives. This is the episode 2 of our quarterly talk show series. This is a series which we started in the last quarter, intended to be a casual conversation between intersex activists and other stakeholders about emerging issues within the sphere of intersex rights. In the last episode, we spoke about the engagement of intersex activists in the UNCSW 69 session. This quarter, we have another exciting episode, and we have guests from South Africa and Kenya to speak about a recent policy reform which happened in Kenya with regard to the introduction of intersex as a sex marker in the birth certificate document. This is a significant development as Kenya was one of the first countries to include intersex people within the census in 2019. This is a development which is being closely looked at by intersex organizations, activists across the world, and so is our own interest from Asia. Intersex Asia has also been working on this particular subject. We are trying to explore, we are trying to engage with various stakeholders working within the broad subject of civil registration and vital statistics. The recent move by Kenya government is very significant as it is first of its kind. This is a step which has been welcomed by several quarters and there are several questions also about it as to what are going to be the implications of this. So we are very glad to have a great panel with us. We have Frankie coming all the way from Kenya. Frankie is closely involved with the movement in the country. And also we have Peace, who works as an intersex policy officer at Iranti, a South African organization. Peace is also has been closely watching this particular development. And then also we have our very own Haika Cho, who is the executive director of Intersex Asia. I'll go to each one of you with the questions that I have. But before we get into the deeper details, Frankie, maybe we can start with you. If you can tell us what exactly is the consequence of this particular announcement and what are going to be the implications in your view?
Thank you so much for having me in this session. It has been a while. We have been planning to have this session, but finally here we are. My name is Frank Robert Kibagendi from Kenya. I'm an intersex person and also one of those activists or advocates who have been working hard to ensure that the intersex persons are recognized in Kenya. And I am happy to say that the work we have been doing for the last 13 years, finally, we have something we can do. We can say that recognition is here. 10 years ago, when I started this work, we had completely nothing. We did not have a name we can call who we were or who we are. And because of that, we were like, what are we going to do to ensure that the intersex persons are being recognized? And I remember by that time we had a case, that is a Baby A case, we had a Richard Mwasia case or RM case. And this case, because of they went through the courts, through courts in Kenya. And because of this, we were able to get way forward from the court, asking the government of Kenya to make sure that they come out to recognize the intersex persons. And this happened through 2017, 2018, when we had Attorney General of Kenya forming a committee which is called, even now it is there, which is called IPIC, Intersex Persons Implementation Coordination Committee. This committee were given a responsibility to ensure, to find out how many intersex persons are in Kenya, what are the challenges intersex persons face, and what can the government do moving forward. And I participated in that committee in 2017, 2018, and we were like, we can't be able to find out how many intersex persons we have in Kenya unless we do that in the general census. And the following year, that was 2019, we had our general census for the first time in Africa and globally that Kenya recorded intersex persons. But remember, because of the challenges we face as a community, not only in Kenya, but globally, people did not come out. But the numbers we managed to get, we were like, yes, intersex person exists. And now we want the government to recognize intersex community officially. So then from 2019, we were like, now we're going up and down, doing advocacy, the community to understand what we are doing, government institutions to know that intersex persons needs birth certificate, ID, all those recognition documents. So because general census cannot like inform what the government is supposed to do, then again, as activists, as organizations, we decided now the only way we can achieve this is through children. So we said, can we amend Children Act to include intersex children? And we did that in 2022. So 2022, Children Act was amended to include children, intersex children. And when we talk about children, that means immediately what comes after children, any child has been born, is a birth notification card, and then followed by a birth certificate, and then later ID. So because of this, Children Act, now the government decided to implement the Children Act. And that's why in 2020, was it this year? Yes, legal notice 153 recognized intersex children through birth notification and a birth certificate. For us, we were not calling it legal documents, vital statistics, but for us, we were like, once the child has been born, what are we supposed to do? What documents comes first? It's later, 2023, 24, we were like, now, when we talk about these documents, what are we supposed to do? And then which comes first? And then remember, in Kenya, apart from the birth notification card, birth certificate, but remember also death certificate of intersex person. So in Badra, in case of any intersex person dies, their death certificate should indicate intersex person. I think I've responded to your question. Sorry, I've taken long, but
Oh,
in nutshell, that's what we have been doing as a country. Thank you.
no, thanks a lot, Frankie. Actually, you've added to our knowledge. I mean, I'm glad to now fully understand the journey which this process actually took and which finally led to this development. And it's also great to know that the term intersex has been added even in the death certificate, because usually governments don't have a very uniform consistent approach across documents. So in some documents there, there is a provision for a marker, in the other ones it goes missing. So it's good to know that the movement has able to achieve this level of consistency in the documents. Thanks a lot for sharing with us this particular context. Peace, maybe we can bring you in at this point. Wanted to hear from you that, how was this particular development received within South Africa and the wider South African intersex movement? I mean, I understand the African region, of course, is also quite significantly large, and there is a regional movement. At the same time, there are sub-regions as well. So now this is the development coming from East Africa. So how was this received in South Africa?
Thank you for your question, Prashant. And thank you so much for inviting us and having me here. So when the news came out, it was a really interesting time because it's in 2025, and despite these confusions around the difference between gender and sex characteristics, Kenya went ahead and led us as intersex activists in Africa in showing us that we can still take up space. And looking at the development of intersex policies in South Africa, in the early times in the 2000s, while the activist Sally Gross was still alive, and together with Thabiseng Mokoena, now Hlompo Mokoena, they worked very hard in working with organizations like the organization Intersex International, and as we all know, Sally Cross is the founder of Intersex South Africa. And at that time, it was the first time that intersex was mentioned in our laws, with the inclusion of intersex within the definition of sex, as well as just the right to have your sex descriptor changed. However, there were limitations on that because as much as the policy is there, it does not directly speak to intersex bodies. Intersex people were just included and in addition to a process that already exists but is not in alignment with intersex people. Like for example, you can change your gender marker. However, you're supposed to exist as a particular gender for 2 years and have a letter from the psychiatrist saying that you can have your gender marker changed. And as time progressed, working with the Department of Home Affairs, we tried to introduce a process where we explain that being intersex is not the same as transgender. And therefore, it is important to find a way that is going to work for intersex people that is not going to also be harmful to them while they are at these places where they need to change their gender marker, probably at puberty. And so it's still quite a big struggle because as much as the policy is there, it does not speak to the realities lived by intersex people. Some intersex people have to commit fraud on their documents because they can't find jobs, because they'll ask you, this says miss, but you're looking like a different person. And so some have resorted to rubbing things off. And as time went on, with the assistance of more aware medical practitioners, there is now a process that has been paved where an intersex person can get a letter from their doctor saying they're intersex, and then they can go to Home Affairs and have their gender marker changed. However, because of the diversity of culture in South Africa, identifying as a man or identifying as a woman and then not being able to partake in the culture and the binary that comes with culture, it also makes it difficult. So that's why I'm saying that it was very exciting, and I'm just eager as well to hear more in terms of what have been the challenges, and how has the society received the change? Has it been welcomed? And I think that it has been quite a journey now that Frankie is also unpacking the road. So it has been quite positive to see, because a lot of intersex people feel like this is what they need from the intersex groups that I have spoken to, including myself, because it's really hard to fit in to the binary as an intersex person. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Peace, for sharing your thoughts. A lot of what you have said, I'm sure, will resonate with intersex activists in Asia, because the conflation between transgender and intersex is something which is very much common in Asia as well, and it is. And also, you've kind of given a hint to the kind of questions that I'm going to ask to Frankie. Actually, those were going to be my next question. But before we go on, let me get a reaction from Hiker as well. How did you think it will impact, broadly on the conversation in Asia?
Okay. Yeah, it's very honored to invite, two activists from Africa to share the so precious knowledge and perspective from Africa. I believe the communication between South, it's very important. When I heard about this news, I personally feel very happy because I personally want to speak loud that I'm an intersex person. I feel that in Asia, especially like in India, like South Asia region, traditionally there is a hijra culture. Yeah, hijra culture is actually people. Hijra people actually include intersex people and trans people. But we cannot deny that the hijra community actually respect intersex as the highest status in the community. So in a way, I especially like according to my understanding that in the Constitution of India, it already recognized that hijra and transgender as part of sex. So actually, in a way that in Asia we kind of have a similar thing already, right? Just in the law, in the specific law, it's still there's still confliction between transgender and the intersex, and so we cannot deny the contribution of hijab people to intersex people. So I believe we need to work together in this issue. And for other country in Asia, I from what I heard, like Nepal, also Nepal people, also want to have a legal identity as intersex, directly, like in the sex marker, like align with the female and male together. But the government actually identified the other as include LGBTI. So actually it is not very feasible for us because no one know who is LGBT when they were born, right? When the baby was born, no one know their identity or sexual identity. We don't know, right? So this other must be belongs to intersex, but it is not clearly specified in Nepal's law. So in the community, intersex community in Nepal, they also think that they want to have intersex as a marker, a sex marker in their law, and they are moving forward to that. But at the same time, I also check with intersex people that I know from Thailand, from Myanmar. They also agree with this, to include intersex as a sex marker, yeah, in their law. But certainly their strength is still very weak. But this is what they feel. And there's other perspective from Philippine community. People in Philippines, intersex people in Philippines, actually have some fear to claim, to look for this approach to include intersex as the third, sex marker because uh, they are afraid of the social discrimination still. So they don't want to choose this approach at this moment. But ultimately, because we want to say that we are proud intersex, right? We are proud intersex people. So ultimately, I think this still be the ultimate goal. But it depends on the social situation in different country and in different contexts. In Taiwan, in our birth certificate, we have a third option. Is maybe like undetermined or unknown on our birth certificate. I feel that this is sufficient to prove that there's a need for doctor to record, right? To document what baby status is, right? Correctly. So it is there, but in our ID registration, we don't have that. The ID registration is still binary. I think this is where that we need to move, try to negotiate and move forward. Yeah, in Taiwan. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Hiker. This is very typical of Hiker. We had gone to Hiker for her personal opinion, but we got the opinion of the entire Asian intersex community. Hiker walked us through each country possible. But yeah, that certainly provides a lot of context about, the how this conversation is happening in Asia. Certainly, like, in South Asia, there are troubling approaches which are being taken. Broader or ambiguous categories like other is being created, in which all gender and sexual minorities are clubbed under it. So that's the case of Nepal, which Hiker spoke about. The similar cases in India as well. The broader other category includes 55,000 uh, transgender children within the age group of 0 to 6. Now you can imagine that these are intersex children, but they are being categorized as transgender children, right? So these are problematic approaches which are being taken by governments across the Asian region as well. But now I do want to bring Frankie back in the conversation. So, Frankie, it's been some time that this announcement was made. Could you share with us a little bit about the impact that it has had? And if you could share some instances how it has affected the daily lives of individuals? Because once you get a birth certificate or an identity document with a intersex as a sex marker, it will have implications in all walks of their life, be it approaching the government in any which way, trying to apply for an educational program, seeking a job. So we are very curious to know what has been the impact of this particular development.
Thank you for that. Honestly, I'm the beneficiary of the announcement, all the insurance of birth certificate. For the last 37 years, I had female names, and we never had any policies that protects the intersex persons or recognize the intersex person. That means I was not able to change my names until 2022, when the Children Act was amended to include the intersex children. And because of the birth certificate, now we are able to get the birth certificate and then change our ID in case you add your dead names on the previous ID. Now you can be able to change that. And honestly, to some extent, as intersex community, we are enjoying, because in Kenya, despite the fact we have trans organizations doing their best work, the LGBT in simple terms doing large and good job, but to some extent, as a country, we have been able separate completely the intersex and the LGBT. Despite the fact we have some organizations which still advocate the rights of intersex persons under the LGBT spectrum. But as I think Kenya, we are partly separating intersex issues and LGBT because of the steps we have taken as a country. But now, remember, as a country, for the longest time, we term intersex community as a curse, intersex persons as a bad omen. Still, culture hinders the intersex person enjoying their rights free. And because of this, as organizations, what we are doing each and every day is to ensure that we are educating the community, the public, to understand that intersex persons, who they are, and the protection we need from them. But as of now, what we are doing, because despite the fact that the government has fully recognized the intersex persons, but still, to some extent, children are not able to get these birth certificates. And now that's another thing we are doing as organizations to push the government to issue to issue the birth certificates. And remember, we have some officers who does not even understand what that means in some counties. But remember, Kenya, we use counties. And again, it's our mandate and the government to ensure that these institutions, these officers understand the existence of this intersex person and what that means, and give them recognition in terms of giving them this birth certificate in showing that these are intersex persons. So despite the fact that we are gaining all this, but still we are pushing the government to ensure that these people are given the birth certificates, notifications, and even the IDs. What that means, to some extent, some schools, because through the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, they came up with some policies to and also including it in books to ensure that the grade 7, 8, and 9 they are able to get the definition of who is an intersex. So more intersex persons are being given opportunity in schools, and we don't want to have specific classes or schools for intersex, but to us, we want integration whereby institutions understand that intersex are here, and what we want to know is just to protect them and make sure that they are getting education. So to some extent, we are enjoying having recognized, and to some extent, it's affecting us in one way or another because still we are pushing hard in terms of awareness. Thank you.
Certainly. Thanks a lot, Frankie, for elaborating on the effect that this reform has had. It's good to hear that it has personally made a difference to your life, and it's already having an impact on the wider community. I mean, understandably, I mean, implementation challenges will remain, but that should never be the reason to not experiment something. This particular announcement, I mean, I believe that we should also address the kind of the range of opinions that this particular reform has generated across across the globe. What do you think is the reason between these difference of opinion within the broader intersex movement? There are, of course, many countries within the global south which are still dealing with the after effects of colonialism, and our identity documents or our overall legal systems are still dealing with the effects of colonization. So do you see those kind of patterns emerging in this conversation? How do you see this difference of opinion between global north and global south on this topic?
Thank you very much for your question. It's quite complex, and it has been quite mind-blowing, the difference in approach, because it's very easy as an intersex person to assume that because I want this, then all intersex people must want the same thing. And so we do see that getting an X or on the gender marker for the more right-wing government, that could backfire because they only recognize the binary. So society is very binary in the way that although the policy support structures can be in place, but how is the society prepared to have that in place? And I think that is the fear that the global north may be having in terms of believing that maybe because already intersex groups are a minority, which I'm starting to believe is not entirely true. Should being intersex be just deemed as it is another form of sex characteristic. And so the developments or the fears come when everything is politicized. Yet being intersex is such an authentic experience because you can't mentally fit into either or. And it's adding to the different kinds of discriminations that already exist, like secrecy. And now when we look from the lens of the African perspective, there are cultural implications because as Iranti is an African regional organizations, we're also exposed to hearing the challenges that are faced by other countries where it is still believed that being intersex is a curse, and a mother has to suffer things like their child being taken away, being placed on a mountain to cry. The parent has to now pay in terms of cleansing the village and bring a cow, and those things are a human rights violation. And I don't think anyone gave any humans, God didn't give any humans the right to take away life because of a difference of development in genitalia. And so it's very, very important to emphasize that this is biology and on a health level, in order for it to trickle down to the society that is at grassroots level. So I believe that in order for Kenya and Africa to prove that the having this gender marker, which wasn't introduced by the gender marker system was not introduced, we didn't have that. So now we have to find ways of including ourselves in this gender marker process, because when those decisions were made, they didn't have intersex people in mind. And so there's this constant erasure. And I've come to personally see this when I share my story on TikTok, for example. And so many people come out as intersex and they're like, oh, I go through the same thing, I go through the same thing. And I'm just like, actually, there's quite a number of us. The only problem is that we don't have space that we can call ours.
Maybe we can go for one round of questions with regard to the manner in which we bring about these kind of changes. In this regard, Frankie, it'll be great to hear from you as to what was the contribution or what was the approach taken by the community in Kenya. We heard about the particular committee that has been formed, but we would like to learn from your approach, and see whether the same can be replicated in other countries. Like, what was the manner in which you went about doing advocacy on this topic, and how did you achieve this? If you can speak a little bit about that.
Thank you. Honestly, in Kenya, nothing for us without us. And that means in this committee, we have intersex organizations represented. And remember, in this committee, this is government institutions. This is different government institutions formed to ensure that they are going to make sure that recognition of intersex persons is being brought on board. And because of that, to some extent, those representatives were in that committee. And remember, other people who are in the ground doing awareness. Because remember, to some extent, people do not have the correct definition, or they don't understand what is the difference between intersex and LGBT. And because of this, to some extent, some communities, some individuals, they just lump intersex together with the other acronyms. And because of that, it was like purely our mandate to go to media, social media, to radio stations, that including vernacular radios. Because in Kenya, we have 42 tribes, and that means 42 languages. And to some extent, it was our responsibility to find out intersex persons from different tribes to go to social media, to media houses, to make sure that the community understands what that means. And honestly, despite the fact that I've been doing this work for the last 14 years, but still, we have a lot to do to ensure that our community gets what that means. So, and that made Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to hire a staff, and also having a commissioner who is an intersex person. And remember, even African intersex movement is registered in Kenya. So to honestly having existing policies, despite the fact we have a gap in implementing it, I think honestly is a plus, not only in Kenya, but Africa and the world. Yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, it's great to hear, and it certainly sounds like a lot of work that has been done by the movement to to be able to navigate through this diversity and the kind of complexity that can arise because of such diversities. And particularly with regard to terminology, it's a relevant issue for Asia as well. Very diverse region. Speaking with regard to India's legal system, 22 official languages. So the moment you bring about changes like these, you have to make similar changes in all official languages. So I fully understand the amount of effort that it must have taken for you all to to be able to achieve this particular change, and the effort that was done with regard to raising awareness. Certainly a lesson for all of us. Peace, would you like to come in here and speak a little bit about how this particular approach is, let's say, if at all this particular approach is being experimented in South Africa or other parts of the region? How do you think we can go about this particular process on advocating for inclusion of intersex as a sex marker?
Thank you so much, Frankie, for also sharing that perspective. I believe that there are ways too many challenges that intersex people are not able to prove that they are being harmed. Like, for example, in general society, going into a public bathroom, for example, an intersex person still gets asked to prove, why are you going to the female bathroom when you look this way? So prove that you are actually female. And these are young people, young teenagers that are being bullied and ostracized because of just looking different. And already it shows that the future of intersex people has been deliberately made bleak for a very long time because of not taking the policies down to the communities. So it's very important and very great and encouraging to hear that in Kenya, the groups that are within the sectors that are making change work closely with the grassroots level organizations in order to demonstrate that support. Because when you come as an intersex person and you share your story, you're already putting yourself in a vulnerable place. And yet it is the only way that change can come. And so instead of the hierarchy, like the pyramid facing upwards like this, it needs to turn around and start from the bottom, going up, taking the information to the people in a language that they understand. And in South Africa, we have 11 official languages. And already there isn't language that can be able to clearly state what being intersex means without going and borrowing from the English language. And so we are trying to do different kinds of research into history because intersex people have been existing since existence. And so there's no way, just like all of the different kinds of information that keeps coming up about different things that have been hidden in the world because of how advanced technology has become and how easy it is to access information. Those words are coming up because it is important that while we are including intersex as a gender marker, how do we then experience life? How do we include intersex people in the economy? How do we include intersex people in education? Kenya has done a great approach in that and introducing the curriculum, the intersex variations, part of the curriculum. So that's another step. And when we tried to introduce this, we had a bit of a backlash from parents who said, I want to decide whether or not I want my child to know about intersex people, which was also devastating because how and when and who will be interested enough to say, okay, we come intersex people, we love you. Come, let us celebrate you. Come, let us recognize you. Come, let us give you dignity. Come, let us see you. Let's hear you. Because there's a lot of pain that comes with existing within a particular binary and taking on all of those challenges. Like, for example, existing in a female body in this country that I'm in is very dangerous to be a female. And it's very dangerous as well to be a man to females. And so already you are trapped in a cycle that you don't know how to get out of because you are not recognized as yourself. And in order to prepare society to accept intersex people, there is a lot of funding that needs to go into assisting grassroots organizations and also helping the organizations that are leading in the countries to get into parliament, to push intersex people to get into parliament, because the other problem is not every intersex person can just say, I have a master's degree and I studied this and now I can be in this space, because we've been silenced. So it's very crucial to learn a lot from Kenya and also learn a lot from any of the challenges, and learn a lot from, I think, the victories, because that's what I'm hearing and picking up from what is being said by Frankie a lot. And I think that being positive and looking at the ripple effect and how quickly everything is moving now, it's very important to have all the perspectives included without fear that one opinion is bigger than the other, or it is just what it is. Thank you.
Heike, do you want to come in on this particular point as to what do you see the way forward for Asian intersex movement with regard to this particular topic? How would you like to see the next steps? You're certainly heading a regional level organization, so you have that hat, at the same time the hat of an activist. How do you see this conversation moving forward in Asia?
Yeah, thank you. First, I really want to show my big gratitude to people in Kenya. I think you demonstrate the greatest courage, within our community. I believe the discrimination you face is not lesser than other places in the world, but you still choose to fight with the discrimination directly, not to hide ourselves. I believe this courage, is the biggest lesson that we can learn, from Africa. And for Asia, I think it's very inspiring. So I believe look forward, more collaboration, more learning from each other, more embrace, the diversity value that every community, every country have, is something that we should continue to explore and develop. I also want to thank that what Peace mentioned about the non-binary feeling. I also, identify more as a non-binary intersex person because I also face the similar issue like what Peace just mentioned. I really couldn't fit in this or that. That's why I also think this is inspiration for all human beings, because even though you were assigned as male or female, you could feel couldn't fit in, right? That's why there are non-binary gender identity in the world, even though there are typical male and the female. Certainly for intersex people, it's much more easy to face this kind of issue that we don't fit in. So I totally agree that we need to create a space for non-binary intersex people to speak out. But I also feel that we need to create a space for non-binary identity people to also enjoy and have space, enjoy their life, right? Because it means that these people actually are the minority in the marginalized group. And we have to speak for these people because we, I have to say, we might be most vulnerable group in this group. I totally support this. So in the future, I really want to continue to talk about what are intersex gender identity, gender identity of intersex people. We should invite, people identify as, different gender identity to share their experience. And also to invite, intersex people who just cannot fit in into the binary to talk about their experience. We must create more space for these people and learn from each other, support each other. And then we can really get, knowledge from community. We don't just follow all mainstream knowledge, from the community. We have to keep listen, keep open our mind and keep listen and keep creating space, for people.
Thanks a lot, Hiker. I really wish we had more time to continue to unpack this, the impact of this development. But sadly, we have very limited time. But before we end, we must all congratulate Frankie and the intersex movement in Kenya for achieving, this particular milestone. We are certainly listening and taking notes from your approaches, and we will also start to implement some of those lessons. A lot has been said in this particular conversation, so it's hard to summarize. But if I were to put the summary of this particular conversation in one sentence, I guess we are talking about giving that space to diverse experiences, giving intersex people that space to inform law and policy reform related conversations, and particularly giving recognition to the lived experiences of people, trying to unpack the different terminologies which have existed since time memorial. So a lot of research is needed to uncover those terminologies, and that will give real recognition. We would have to end it here today, but hopefully we will continue to have such conversations in upcoming episodes. At Intersex Asia, we are focused a lot on this particular topic. We are hoping to come out with a thematic publication on this subject, and hopefully, we will also participate in the Gender and CRVS Symposium. This is a event to be organized by UNFPA happening in Kenya, a global conversation. We are currently exploring opportunities on how to engage in these kind of platforms. But with this, I would like to conclude this particular episode of Interperspectives. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our newsletter, and wait for the next episode of Interperspectives. Thank you for watching.